Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. It is 9:02 a.m. My name is Ty Mentor, Chair of the Board. To my left, Vice Chair Commissioner Wayne Fournier, Commissioner Rachel Grant, Commissioner Emily Klaus, and Commissioner Mejia on Zoom. Public virtual attendance is available on the Thurston County YouTube channel. County Manager Leonard Hernandez, Assistant County Managers Jennifer Walker and Josh Cummings, and Clerk of the Board Amy Davis. Written public comment may be received up to 2 hours in advance of this meeting and would be distributed to the Board of County Commissioners if so. Action may be taken at this meeting. First up is a review of this afternoon's proposed business agenda for April 15th board meeting. We're transitioning to a new process whereby the items that will be reviewed in a second review will be the ones where commissioners had questions or basically questions from the first review. We think in the future that'll be denoted by like highlighted items on the second view. We don't have those highlighted, but Amy's going to tick through the ones that we're going to cover. If staff's here for an item that's not identified by Amy, you're free to go, and hopefully in the future you'll know that in advance, and hopefully that's a good process change. And then for folks who Amy identifies as items that we're going to call this morning, we'll go through those items first up. So go ahead, Clerk. Madam Clerk.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. I will first highlight the items that were moved from the consent agenda to department items. That is now Department Item 1, Central Services, Sub-Items 1, 2, and 3. Department Item 2 for the Commissioner's Office, which is Sub-Item 1. Department Item 4 for the Sheriff's Office, Sub-Items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so hold on real quick. Public Works, so you're ticking ones that have been changed since last, correct. And that's not the Public Works or
correct, that was a department item on the agenda that we reviewed last week.
Very good. So there's 4 Sheriff's items?
Yes.
All right.
Items moved from department items to the consent agenda is consent item 8. For Public Health and Social Services. This is the resolution of intention for Thurston County Long Lake Management District number 51. New items on the agenda this week is consent item number 4 from HR. That is the collective bargaining agreement for corrections deputies. And consent item 18, which is the reappointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for the City of Tenino representative. There was one comment last week that I misinterpreted. It was regarding consent item 12, the Public Works item for the contract for the pavement milling machine. And there was a request to add in the term for 3 years in the motion. And I thought it was a question to confirm the pricing for the 3 years. But that can simply be added into the motion for this afternoon.
Where is that item? Because it's not.
Consent.
It was 12 last week, maybe. Okay, 10.
Right, consent item 10.
Okay, so you'll add that in. Okay. Okay, so in the future, it may not be moving something off consent may not be cause to have to revisit the item if there weren't questions about it. But for this morning's purposes, we will do that just to be sure because it's kind of new. And then you're saying those are the only items where commissioners had questions or concerns. Any questions from the board? Any other items you'd like to, since staff's here? Okay, so we'll just go through that list and then we'll move on to the agenda. So then first up, obviously the meeting's structured as normal. I don't see anything unusual. There's a proclamation for Volunteer Appreciation Month. So let's look at item 4 in the consent agenda, which is a new item. It does need, obviously, to be addressed because it's an HR item.
The proclamation for volunteer, just kind of daylight what we're doing, because I see the tables all set up and it sounds pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that last week. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
I'll take the plug in for the volunteer fair today. So this afternoon from noon to 4, we will have local organizations that rely on volunteers and are seeking volunteers here tabling in the open atrium area. And we invite all staff and all members of the public who visit us today to come down and see if there are any organizations or volunteer opportunities that interest them. Our goal this afternoon is for 50 new volunteer signups. Not per organization, but just in total. So we're very excited and looking forward to that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Noon to 4, you said?
Yes.
This is a big deal, highlighting nonprofits, other organizations in our community, and giving them an opportunity to connect with our staff, and our staff then an opportunity to connect with them and volunteer in our community. So this is really an effort to bring us together once again, and I just applaud the work of staff that's been leading this. Amy and Ellen and others that spent time moving all those tables around out there and getting ready for having this happen this afternoon. So it's new
Yeah,
and
this
it's
is a
a
new
big
thing,
deal.
and
We've
whoever
never done
came
it.
up with it, it's brilliant, I think.
Appreciate that.
Question. What was the time again on that?
Noon to 4.
Noon to 4. Okay, so it's gonna be going on while we're in meetings?
Yes.
That's great.
It's actually part of the, sorry.
No, that's great. Well, the other thing was, and there's a Facebook post somewhere, I suppose, that I could reshare on my Facebook?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll do that really quick this morning. Okay.
It's part of the proclamation. As we've seen the last few meetings that staff have worked hard, and I also want to include the support of the commissioner's aides as well, helping identify different community groups and folks that we may have missed, and also helping to facilitate the meetings come together. It's our way to really take the proclamations and to highlight how Thurston County government is a part of Thurston County community, and that one can't exist without the other. So bringing the folks to the beautiful atrium so that they can engage with our staff and the public that'll be coming in, but also receive a proclamation from you. I think it's a win-win for them to accomplish their mission and for our staff to have opportunities and the public to have opportunities to volunteer at a great level.
It is new, and I just want to say that I felt a lot better. I mean, me personally, feel a lot better about the proclamations when we have less of them and we do more with them.
Yes.
It just has just felt good about it, rather than like, oh man, there's 3 of them on here and we don't even know if someone's showing up, and it doesn't feel like we're doing justice to the issue, but we want, this feels a lot better, so I hope everybody's
The
feeling
last
that.
few have seemed more meaningful.
Okay, cool.
I completely agree.
Excellent, thank you, Commissioner. Okay, so then that brings us to item 4 on the consent agenda, which is a new item. Maria Ponte from HR is here, so I turn it to you, or County Manager?
No, this is the item that we added.
Collective bargaining agreement, sorry, I should introduce it.
Before, so Cameron, you can come up.
I usually say the name, let me say it. Collective bargaining agreement with ASME Local 618 CD Correction Deputies.
Okay, well, good morning, Commissioners. I'm glad to announce that we have reached an agreement with the Corrections Deputies Union. We have been negotiating with them since last summer?
Yep.
Early fall. And their members have ratified the provisions of the contract, and so this afternoon we'll be bringing that contract before the Commissioners for your ratification.
Questions for team?
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. Big moment for us on that one. We'll move forward to item 8, which is resolution of intention for Thurston County Long Lake Management District number 51.
Hyde is here with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Jen Freiheit, Public Health and Social Services Director. This is seeking your approval on a professional services contract with Lewis County, or I'm so sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Yes, seeking your approval on amendment number 3 to the Washington State Department of Health Consolidated. No, oh my God.
We're on Long Lake.
I am completely on the wrong one. Hold on, this is from last week.
Too
Okay.
much business at Public
Very
Health.
sorry. Resolution, 3rd time's a charm, right? For the intention of Thurston County Long Lake Management District number 51, this petition to create the new Long Lake Management District number 51 received the required number of signatures of the owners of at least 20% of the acreage contained within the proposed district RCW 36.61.030. The district is proposed for a 20-year period, which is different from before, beginning on January 1st, 2026 and expiring on December 31st, 2026, forming a new LLMD number 51 to protect Long Lake water quality and beneficial uses, which will serve the interests of the public and property owners.
And you heard last week from folks that this is non-controversial and that the Long Lake folks are excited to have this length of time to have their management district underway. So they're appreciative of the commissioner's action on this item.
Is that new that they can go to 20 years? I thought it was like 10 before.
It was 10.
And this is allowable. And they appreciate the 20.
Long Lake is one of the two really long-standing lake management districts since the 80s, I want to say. So, even though it sounds like a new district, it's not a new district.
Right.
It's extending what they've been doing for like 30 years, 30 plus years. So, any other questions from the board? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 10 is contract award for pavement milling machine rental, Public Works.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, County Manager, Matt Huntsman, Thurston County Engineer. Public Works is recommending the Board of County Commissioners award a contract for renting a pavement milling machine for $307,906. As Amy mentioned earlier, this is for a term of 3 years. So we'll be renting this machine each year twice for 2 months at a time in the spring and the fall. This piece of equipment is absolutely essential to being able to perform maintenance on the more than 1,000 miles of roadways that we're responsible for maintaining.
I don't recall if there was a question on this item or why we had it.
No, I don't know.
I think it was the 3-year term that.
Oh, just the 3-year
Amy
term.
was
Oh,
talking
okay.
about.
Yeah, that was just so that folks understand what we're paying, by annually.
There was initially questions about why we rent something, versus why but they were all answered very well.
Okay, so we'll have that additional language and we'll do a motion to amend the item.
You don't need to do motion to amend the item. I will adjust the agenda for this afternoon and just highlight those words
Okay.
for 3 years and
The new
you can just-
new words will be in the motion, not in the.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just where that were prepared on the paper. Thank you. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to item 18, which is reappointment to Solid Waste Advisory Committee. This was added. I'm not sure there was any controversy about it or question, but since it's an added item, is that the correct spelling? KLAMN?
It is.
Okay, clam. Public Works Director,
What item? It's KL.
18.
Yeah, KLA.
KLAMN. Okay.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Karen Weiss, Public Works Director. So this is a item, as you mentioned, to reappoint a current member of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Ellen Claim, and I also don't know how to pronounce her last name, so I apologize in advance for that. And this is for a 3-year term from April of 25 to April of 2028.
She's a council member?
Yeah. You say it just like the mollusk.
Clam.
Clam, okay, thank you.
Elaine Clam. Okay, perfect. Any questions on item 18 there? Thank you. All right, department items. Again, we covered these and I don't know if they're all have questions, but let's just go through them since they've been moved to department items. Item 1.1, Central Services, NPP Gov Cooperative Membership.
Morning, Bruce Verba, Interim Central Services Director. This item is for Central Services to join a national procurement organization offering competitively bid contracts. There were no questions on this item from last week, but I'm here to answer any questions. Sense?
Anything? Hearing none, let's go to item 2. Set a public hearing for proposed ordinance amending Thurston County Code 2.104 to regulate disposition of public property for affordable housing. Thomas, morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rick Thomas, the manager of the Capital Projects Planning Group. This agenda item is to schedule a public hearing to receive and consider public testimony on the proposed ordinance amendment to the Thurston County Code 2.104 to regulate the disposition of public property to affordable housing in accordance with RCW 3933015. This special disposition process would apply where the county has real property that is surplus to its needs and the transfer of the property would result in a public benefit, such as but not limited to contributing to the supply of affordable housing, supporting temporary housing or other response to homelessness, or improving essential public services such as transportation or utilities that support the goals of affordable housing development in providing economic and social stability for low-income persons. In such cases, the Board of County Commissioners transfers the surplus real property to an approved public, private, or non-governmental organization for public benefit purposes. And prior to this public hearing, a legal notice, web mail and press release will be issued, and we're asking that the public hearing be on May the 6th if possible. And maybe just a little bit of looking forward, the reason for this ordinance amendment would be to give us the ability to work with Homes First, that is a nonprofit in our area that does provide affordable housing, to give us the opportunity to transfer some properties that we have been leasing to them for years, and then have them continue their services as the owner. That would be an item that would be brought forward in the future. Any questions?
Questions on this one?
No, just the previous one, was that one that we moved off of consent calendar? Or is that one that,
I think it was moved off.
That was one that was moved off of the consent calendar.
okay, I just, like trying to understand, what we keep on consent and what we don't keep on consent. There's no questions from the board about it. It seems like a, fairly, mundane, item. And I just want to, in my mind, that, these are things that after we've been presented on 3-4 times by staff, it is better use of staff time, in my opinion, to continue with something like that on consent calendar when we have our meetings or later in the day or in the evening. I don't know that if we're going to take it off consent calendar and then just do this again in another meeting, that it serves the public or it serves the staff. So I just want us to, if maybe there's a future discussion about why and when we pull things off the consent calendar, we could have that. But when I hear, Bruce come up and talk about the cooperative membership agreement, that seems like a consent item agenda to me, just for the record.
Commissioner Grant?
I'm pretty sure that Commissioner Klaus had this one pulled off, but I will say that in the meeting, I'm going to offer a comment of praise around this. And so that might be a reason just, to publicly say, really good work. This is really important. And that's one reason to pull something off consent.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Let's go on to item 3 under Department Central Services, sole source purchase for TCSO Motorola radios. Or did I skip one? No.
This is for the purchase of 18 portable and mobile radios to support the public safety sales tax initiative that added deputies for 2025. So this is a sole source purchase because we can get a more advantageous pricing by going this route over the NASPO contract. And briefed this last week. I'm available to answer any questions that may have arisen since then.
Comes before the board because it's a sole source and it's a procurement policy
Correct.
item, so kind of a technical issue. But any questions on item 3?
No, but I guess I do have a question. I mean, help me just to make sure I got this right. But the reason it's sole source is because it's currently the contract that we're working with for all of the other radios, correct? And it's just a sole source with that same company, and then they're bringing on the additional radios. Is that right?
A little bit of background story, helpful. So when Thurston implemented the digital radio program, they were able to negotiate extremely favorable pricing for the county or for the work for all entities. However, that contract has lapsed, but Motorola is continuing to honor that pricing.
Got it, thank you. I just couldn't quite remember.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Then let's go on to item 2.1, under Commissioner's Office, updated Thurston County commute trip reduction local plan. Is that correct? I understand we have TRPC in the house as well.
We do.
If needed.
Mayor, good morning, Commissioners. Rebecca Harvey, Climate Mitigation Senior Program Manager. Thank you for your interest in the Thurston County local commute trip reduction plan. As requested at last week's agenda setting meeting, I will briefly highlight the plan now for you, as well as this afternoon at the business meeting. So the commute trip reduction, or CTR law, was passed in 1991 as part of the Washington Clean Air Act with the intent of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and traffic congestion by reducing the number of cars on the road. The CTR law affects large employers, generally those with 100 or more employees, and encourages workers to drive alone less by using transit, walking, biking, carpooling, or teleworking. And the law has really made Washington State a national leader in commute trip reduction. For example, the teleworking rate in the state has increased from 6% before the pandemic to about 50% today. And we are very fortunate here in Thurston County because Thurston Regional Planning Council administers the CCR program on behalf of the county and the other local jurisdictions that are affected by the law. And this local plan for Thurston County that's on today's agenda highlights how commute trip reduction work is integrated into other county plans, such as the Thurston 2045 Comprehensive Plan updates and the Transportation Improvement Plan. It highlights projects such as the county's trail connectivity program and also activities such as Intertransit's annual.
Oh, you're right there. I was just texting.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Annual bicycle community challenge that the county participates in along with other workplaces and community groups throughout the region. So as I said, Veronica Jarvis with TRPC is here, and we're grateful to TRPC for leading this charge for our region, and she's here to answer any questions if there are any.
Are there amendments to what's new? Like, that's kind of the good background, but like, what is new in that the public might be aware of?
The targets are new. You want to speak to that a little bit, Veronica?
Higher, lower, the same, different?
Yeah, so we are required to update this plan technically every 4 years. We had an extension prior to this, so we hadn't done it in about 10. But yes, exactly what Rebecca said. We do have some updated targets for the region, as well as updating it to your local projects in the community of what you have going on that supports multimodal transportation in the community. As Rebecca mentioned, our local targets have changed due to really the increased telework in the area. And as she mentioned, we're one of the highest percentage in the state of adopting telework, largely because of our state workforce. If we're talking about county work sites specifically, the jurisdiction has 2 to 4 work sites that are technically in its affected jurisdiction. One of those being your Tilley Road work site, Evergreen State College. This work site is actually in the Olympia commute trip reduction area because you're in the city of Olympia. And then there's a couple of WashDOT offices that have bounced around between being in the county, and they're like small project engineering offices, but those are your affected work sites. So when you look at some of the data and the updated targets in the plan, it's for those work sites from that data. So just in case that's, it seems surprising that there's a very high rate of telework. It's not for a lot of like the manufacturing sites and things like that.
And so the target for driving alone, or for non-driving alone, is 45%?
Yeah, yes,
From
yes.
the baseline of 42%? Was that?
It went from 45 and we're making it to 42, yes. Because we include everything else. So telework, carpool, vanpool, biking, walking, compressed work week in that number of people not driving alone. So it's kind of confusing terms, I'm sorry. It's hard to chat through.
Non-driving alone?
Non-driving alone. So single occupants.
Carpooling, let's just use that.
Yep.
So if more people are teleworking, why wouldn't the percentage go up instead of down?
Well, so it lowers your percentage of non-drive alone rate in your community if you have more people teleworking, if I'm saying this right. So more people not driving alone means, yes, so it would lower your or it would raise it, so it would make your goal be more. I feel like I need a chart right now.
I'm confused, I just have to say.
I know.
Because I would think that you, based on the telework trends post-pandemic,
Yes.
you could expect less people driving alone.
Yes, so our target is our drive alone rate, and so we're trying to lower the
Okay.
drive alone rate.
So it's not the non-driving
So our
alone.
non-drivers
Driving
are
alone,
lower.
that makes more sense.
Thank you, I was like, I think we're saying
I'm
this
really
wrong.
having trouble with the logic,
Yes,
but,
thank you.
okay.
Yes.
I have a quick question. And these are reported out, just wondering about metrics, like how we end up getting updated on that each year, I mean, on the newbie. So I just don't know what those are. I wonder if there might be value in stating that to later today, like that, and here's our new rate and here's how you can track along whether or not we're meeting that goal or not.
Yeah.
You do a survey every year.
Yep, so we do a survey every other year, every 2 years. We did one in 2023, we'll do it again this fall. And as I said, that is just for those work sites that are affected by the program. But as TRPC runs the program, we are always open to people that want to participate on a voluntary basis. What we really are doing is providing a lot of information, but also if a work site wants to know their metrics of how their employees are getting to work, we're happy to help them with that. So if you ever hear of work sites in the county that want to, do better and do more for climate mitigation, things like that, we're always happy to work with them.
Okay. And then the metrics that tell us whether we're meeting the goal of 42%, the new goal, would be, we would be able to see those in 2 years based on a survey.
Yep.
And did we come close last year?
Well, so we were actually just resetting the baseline in this last year because the State Department of Transportation procured a new survey tool that helped us provide more accurate data. Prior to this, we were asking people, how do you generally commute in the week? And now we're asking for more granular data by day of week because people have such different commute ways every day of the week. And some people are working Saturdays so now we're asking by day of the week, which will help us get better data. And so we established a new baseline with this survey. And that's why we have a comparison to before, but it's not perfect. So really our 2023 results are the new baseline. But I do expect to see some sort of leveling out of the level of telework we saw in our community because 2023, this was at the end of 2023, we were still heavily relying on that in the area. And I think that we've seen a lot more shift to hybrid work and more in-office days. So I think we'll see a little tweaking and the goals might not be exactly right, but we were trying to at least throw a dart at a board and pick something that might work for the region.
So looking at this driving alone rate, like this, what this 42% means?
Yes.
Are these like out of car, like what, 42% of what? Is it of all the cars that are out there right now, how many are driving alone, but there may be way fewer cars because people are teleworking? Or is it out of people that are working and how they commute? And if I never leave my house, do I count as like, I didn't drive alone? I walked to the office, in my downstairs office.
This is a great question about the data. And as I said, it's for just the work sites that are affected by the program is the data we got. But yes, we asked teleworkers to participate. So if you did walk downstairs in your house, we asked you to participate and you said, I did not leave my house, I saved a trip. So
that counts.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we did explicitly say as part of the survey this year that teleworkers count, please include them because those are avoided trips in our community. And that is helping our community have less wear and tear on their roads by having people commute and travel less. What we have found is it has sort of shifted when people are, and I'm from TRPC, I can't help talking about when people are now traveling because we do household travel survey and things like that. But we are seeing shifts in when people travel in the day away from those very explicit commute times of the morning and the afternoon, and it's shifted the demand throughout the day as people are doing errands at lunch, things like that. So it has changed travel patterns a little bit, and that's why I said I think with the next survey, we'll sort of see how that's shaking out of who is going to the office 2 days a week, going to, and we'll be able to put that in the data better because we're asking by day of the week now. so, and accommodating that hybrid workplace that a lot of our work sites are going to. These are great questions, so thank you.
Okay, other questions before we?
I have more, but I'll leave them for TRPC.
Thanks. And if anybody ever wants more information, I'm truly happy to come back or help any of your staff or work sites. So thank you.
I think I heard we're doing good and getting better.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
The next four items, the last four items on the agenda are the Sheriff's Office items. So I see Under Sheriff Macias. All right.
Yes, good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning. Let's start with the first item, Under Sheriff. It's contract with North Thurston School District for school resource officer.
Yes, and this is for, to renew the contract with North Thurston School District to provide an SRO for mainly Nisqually Middle School. This is something we've been doing for the past probably 6 years. This will continue it for another 3 years for the school years of 2025, 26, 26, 27, and then 27, 28. The contract rate will be the same, $95,000 provided by the North Thurston School District. This is one of the SRO programs that we've kind of been in jointly with the city of Lacey. When Nisqually Middle School was annexed by the city of Lacey, they did not have enough SROs that they were able to fill. So we've been jointly providing that, like I said, over at least the last 6 years. But this is to continue it on for the next 3 years.
Okay, there was a lot of comments about this last meeting that I won't repeat, at least about the background of all this. So, but are there any questions for today? Commissioner Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had a couple questions, and Under Sheriff Macias, I can also follow up in an email if that's better. I had more notes that I left upstairs on this, so I'm gonna do my best to address all the questions now. But in reviewing the SRO contract over the weekend, I know last week we had some discussion on the statutory requirements for data reporting. And I didn't see those addressed in the contract, but I thought maybe, because I know there's a lot of players here, there's the school district, there's ESD, and there's the sheriff's office. So it's possible that these requirements are addressed somewhere else, and if that's the case, then that's great to know. But, well, I guess before I go through all of them, maybe you could just answer, is there an MOU with the school district that details the program implementation and the operational guidelines for the SRO program?
I do not know off the top of my head, other than this contract that we use to facilitate that. I know that the reporting requirements that our deputy does in regards to reports taken or anything like that just follow with our normal policies and procedures as far as reporting. I know he also does track a log of all his contacts and interactions school to school, because there is several middle schools that he spends time at as well. So he documents a log and maintains a log that's provided to North Thurston School District. As far as what the school's reporting and what they're mandated to report, I don't know off the top of my head on that.
Okay, perfect. That's helpful.
Commissioner Klaus, if you remember, I was saying that the state law puts the burden on the school district. So they and I don't know, the sheriff may have other things that they have to do, but that newish law, it's not that new anymore, like 5 years ago, required that if a school district wanted to use an SRO, they had to track certain metrics and report them to the state. So I don't know I don't think it needs to, wouldn't be bad to have in the contract necessarily, but I don't think it needs to be in there because it's in statute.
Totally. I caught that over the weekend. That's why I was like, well, maybe there's an MOU or something else that kind of outlines this so that we have access to some form of confirmation that the statutory requirements are being met. Because even if it's the burden of the school district to provide it, if we're approving an agenda item to go ahead and move forward with I know this program's already in existence, but this is the first time it's come before us since I've been here. And I just want to make sure that if we're approving something on the agenda, especially an item that could be potentially controversial, we can say with full confidence, this program is meeting all of the outlined requirements by the state. So, but it's possible maybe if you follow up with the school district or the sheriff, possibly that something exists.
I can double check on that.
I wonder if that's the sheriff with his hand raised.
Yes. Right, Sheriff Sanders, I
There we go.
see you.
Yeah, well, a couple things. The first is, we have nothing to do with that piece of reporting. That everything that Commissioner Mintzer is mentioning about is done through the school district. They're their own entity. They're responsible for keeping up their end of this deal. Our job is to provide the trained SROs. So our job is to send those SROs to the extra training and make sure that they're showing up to the schools every day, and that those SROs are doing what those school administrators are wanting inside their building, as long as it obviously coincides with our policy and procedures. But I would also argue too that I don't think this is a controversial thing. It may be controversial in the city of Olympia or Olympia School District because they're the only ones that don't have SROs. Every other school district in this county has SROs without any kind of conflict. So I mean, I think that it's an outlier that there's a school district where this is something that's controversial, but for the rest of the county, it's not. The rest of the county has had SROs for decades, and the school districts have quite literally come to us and said, we want this program to continue. So yeah, I would say that for our contract piece isn't going to include what the school districts need to do on their side of things for reporting. If a law came through that said we needed to report something specifically, then we would do that as well.
Okay, thank you. I wish I had my notes that I wrote on the contract over the weekend in front of me, but maybe I can pull it up real quick.
Want to take a second, run upstairs and grab them?
No, that's okay. There was something within the statute itself that I thought was kind of interesting that talked about how data has shown that there are some students that are disproportionately affected, especially students of color. And so when I say it's potentially controversial, I don't necessarily mean between the sheriff's office and this school district. I mean, just in general, this is why this legislation was implemented. And it'd be great for, Thurston County to be able to lead the way on something like this and say, hey, we are following all best practices. We are aligned with everything that the state is requiring of us. But like you said, Sheriff, some of this stuff, which I noticed in the statute, is the responsibility of the school. Including one thing you said, which was making sure that the deputies are trained. I thought that I saw that somewhere saying the school was supposed to make sure that that happens, which I thought was odd because how is the school gonna make sure a deputy is trained? So I just thought, I don't know if there's, it sounds like there's not an MOU between the district. The contract itself is in some ways what an MOU would kind of address, I think. Okay, perfect. So, it looked like there were 13 different topics that the deputies should be, or have to be trained in. Do you do those trainings through your office and ensure that they're in compliance with all 13 of those specific SRO training requirements?
Correct, because those are actually done through the state. So the Criminal Justice Training Commission is the one who hosts both SRO Basic and SRO Advanced. And so we just send them off to SRO Basic and SRO Advanced. They get the training they need and they come back with the transcripts, obviously.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so even though it says the state is, or the school district is required, you're right. I mean, we're the ones who are ultimately going to make sure that the individuals that we select for SRO are going to have the training they have to be compliant with those mandates.
Okay. Is that like an annual requirement, or how often do they have to take those trainings?
Well, to be in the school, and I'd have to look up the exact worded, I think it's like within 6 months of being assigned as a school resource officer, they have to attend the SRO Basic, but we usually have them done before then. And then every year we send them to different kinds of training. So in the summertime, they're not in the school, so that's usually when we try to get them into their different trainings that we want them to go to. So typically what you see is that to get them into the schools, they'll go through SRO Basic, and usually in year 2 or 3, those summers, they'll go to SRO Advanced.
Okay. Okay, and this particular...
Also, in addition to that training, I know that last year, North Thurston had, school district had additional trainings that we had to verify that our SRO went to. And I don't have the documentation for that, but it was on their side. And our deputy that does that, Micah Rose, he has already completed all those. They might be in addition to the school resource officer 1 and 2, but I think those were embedded in the school themselves.
Okay. Where would I find that information if the school has it? Because it's not necessarily like our jurisdiction for me to be able to go to the school and say, hey, can you show me this? This documentation. Is that something that that your office could provide if I were to send out an email requesting that?
Well, I think it would be the same as us going to the superintendent and saying, hey, can you provide training documents for Lacey Police Department's SROs? We could certainly fill out the PDR for you, but they're their own governing body. So this contract obviously binds the two governing bodies, but we would approach that probably the same as you is, hey, can you provide us the training documents that Deputy Rose had for the year of 2023, where he had some additional training with North Thurston, and then North Thurston would just provide us with those documents.
Okay. All right. I thought you might have them within your office, but it sounds like maybe not. So I can try to see if I can look for those.
They're probably in his training file, but again, depending on how it was documented with North Thurston Public Schools, the schools, like we talked about last time, they're going to have their own vision of what they want the school resource officer to be. So Rochester might ask for more active shooter training, whereas North Thurston might just say, hey, show up to more community events after hours with the schools. It's kind of based on what each school district, because they're their own governing bodies. They have school boards who are elected. It's going to be at their direction, at the direction of their superintendent. So, like Under Sheriff Mencius was saying, if North Thurston Public Schools says that they want additional training in this area, then our SRO is going to go participate in that training.
Okay. All right, awesome. I appreciate that context. And I'll still follow up in an email just after I go up and find my notes to make sure that all of this stuff was addressed for this afternoon. But I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else on item sub 1? We'll go to item sub 2, contract with Department of Corrections for Thurston County Narcotics Task Force.
I don't know if the sheriff was going to update on this, but this is for a contract with DOC for reimbursement of up to $10,000 for participation in the Thurston County Narcotics Task Force, which is our drug unit. Currently, they provide some people to the Narcotics Task Force. Obviously, the last time we spoke about it, they have different abilities in dealing with people that are under Department of Corrections supervision. So it is a nice joint task force with the abilities that are deputies that are detectives in the task force that can do, as well as the people that are under DOC supervision and what the DOC officers can do on that accord. They do provide them sometimes on normal duty hours as part of the team, but this would just cover any time that they need to go out and do things after hours. As you can imagine, the drug units have, they don't really work 9 to 5, so the ability to reimburse and have those additional members participate on the task force allows our task force to do a lot more work. So this is just to reimburse them for up to $10,000 of that time.
Questions on the task force item? Nope, good to go. Let's go to item 3, interlocal cooperation agreement for SWAT deployment, Lacey Fire District 3.
And this is an ILA for Lacey Fire District 3. Over the last 20 plus years, we've had medics on the SWAT team. It was actually provided by the city of Olympia for a number of years, then the city of Tumwater for 10 plus years. Last year, we opened it up to try and get more participation as the medics from different fire departments showed interest. Medic 1 was able to get the funding to provide 3 medics to the Thurston County SWAT team. 2 of those that were selected were from Lacey Fire District 3. Currently, the ILA that we've used for the last 15 plus years. Lacey Fire District 3 was not part of that, and they're not part of the city of Lacey. So this ILA is just showing the agreement that they are going to participate the same way as the current ILA, so that Medic One can fund them reimburse them for those costs that they have for the two medics that were assigned from Lacey Fire District 3.
Questions on the SWAT deployment item? Nope. Okay, we'll go to the last item for the Sheriff's Office, single source purchase grappler system.
And this is for approval of a single source purchase to Stock Enterprises for $20,200.55 plus or minus 10%. Over the last year, we were able to purchase several different times different sets of the grappler systems on grants. We did receive in January another grant for almost $20,000 from the Department of Justice to buy 2 additional grappler systems and additional deployment nets. For all of the purchases that we've done on the grapplers, we've had to get the single source purchase approved through the board. So we're asking for that again.
Questions on the grappler piece? Bringing us up, I think you said last week to about half of the vehicles then will be equipped.
We'll be up to almost 30 vehicles once we get these last ones in, and everybody, or all the vehicles installed and all the vehicles coming in.
All right, thank you, Undersheriff. We then have, just to conclude the agenda, we've got 2 public hearings set for 3:30, one for precinct boundary changes, and I see Lynn Watanabe from Auditor's Office. And then we've got one regarding salary commission. Was there any questions on salary commission?
There was a request for a legal opinion, and that was sent out.
That was sent out.
This morning or last night, I think, recently.
Yes, I read it yesterday.
Yeah, thank you for.
Is everybody comfortable with what they read there? Just want to make sure everything was in line with law. Okay, so that concludes the review of this afternoon's agenda. So, yeah.
So before we move on, we would like to implement a new public comment timer this afternoon. So I'd just like to show you that real quick, what it looks like, so we all know what to expect.
You've noticed during the meeting, sometimes there's connectivity issues with the remote control and.
You get like a loud air horn.
So team came up with a different option.
So this is the timer, what it looks like. Zoom in, minimized. So it will look like this, and we will share the screen so that folks on Zoom can see it also. And it counts down, we can pause it. So this will be helpful when we have appeal hearings and folks save some of their time for rebuttal.
So we won't be using the digital one, it'll just be this one?
Correct.
And if a person's at the podium,
We have a screen here, screen there, so it's
the other side.
within eyesight.
Yeah, we moved that anyways, so they weren't.
Yeah.
It wasn't any good. Not that they paid attention to it.
In fact, when I was there.
Most people did.
Commenters said that there was a glare that they couldn't see the.
Oh, really? All right.
So that's
Then it doesn't make noise or anything.
it does at the very end. It just makes a quick little chime alarm, so.
Then a floor drop, panel drop.
Yeah.
No, okay, well, hopefully that's helpful.
So that's what you'll see on the screen this afternoon.
All right.
Good process improvement.
And that is that's the size it'll be, or you can adjust, obviously you
We'll
can
adjust it a little bit so that we still see some of the
person,
Zoom.
maybe a little
and-
smaller than that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okey-doke, thank you, Amy. Let's go to advisory boards.
This morning, the only items for advisory boards that I have to share with you is the upcoming TRL interviews. We have 3 interviews tomorrow morning during the board work session, and we have 6 interviews next Wednesday during both the board work session, and we have 1 during commissioners check-in next week. So tomorrow we have Jacqueline Morris, Gail Wooten, and Arabella Roslin. These will not be live streamed. This portion of the meeting will not be live streamed. The interviews, similar to the format that we've done in the past for these, are 20 minutes. There are no formal questions. It's just an organic conversation between the board and the applicant.
Didn't we have questions though for the last? I mean, I'll turn to the board. I mean, I kind of like having a few questions to just, so it doesn't, you don't waste time or you get somebody rambling in free space, but, Commissioner Grant, I think I saw your hand first.
Well, yeah, and I would say that for equity, having, it could be just two questions. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but
In
this,
20 minutes, you
everyone
can't do
should
too
get
much,
the
but-
exact same questions and the exact same, the ability to answer how they want. Yeah.
Commissioner Mejia.
In the past, we have done the same questions and we've sent them to the participants before the interviews. And so that's, well, the first time we didn't send out questions, but we did have a set list of questions. And then the second time, we sent them out to participants before the interview. And then there were a set list of questions that we asked. And I think commissioners had, if we wanted to ask any additional questions, we could. I asked an additional question of participants, and I believe Commissioner Menser asked an additional question as well that wasn't on the list, but they were more of a follow-up, but we did have.
I'm glad you remember that, because
Yeah.
I get confused between the Board of Health applicants and the the TRL, because we did long slates of short interviews in both those contexts. But, so, sounds like we have some interest in maybe conjuring up the old list, because I think it was a good list.
It was a good
I
list.
think we should just do what we did before.
We will round those up and get those to you all today and to the applicants for tomorrow.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that'll be useful. Okay, and then there's nothing else, there's no other pending applicants or hanging out. Any questions on other board and commission items? Yes, Commissioner Mejia.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about two things, and then kind of have another proposal. The first thing is the Racial Equity Council applications, and I know that there have been advertisements for it, so I'm wondering, how is that recruitment process going, and when are we going to see applications for that?
What was that? Sorry.
Provide an update, unless you'd like to.
No, we just a little detail that those applications are actually going to public health.
Yeah, and Dr. Freitheit sent an update that she has a list, and so we'll be working with the clerk to bring that forward for the commissioners. I think the recruitment process was a good idea, to bring the racial equity board to a better number of representation, because it was getting quite low. So we look forward in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks tops to have something in a process to bring those forward.
Thank you. And then I do have a planning commission vacancy, and I can officially announce that. So my planning commissioner, Derek Day, who was the chair of the planning commission and did an absolutely wonderful job. He put in his resignation, and one of the reasons he put in his resignation is because he is now working for the county. I know he's going to do a great job here. So that was an awesome recruitment, I think, by staff, but of course it left a vacancy for me. And so we did a recruitment. I did receive an application, and it's from Yvonne Miller. And so the recruitment was kind of hard, and so just kind of based on that, I would like to bring that application forward. And so I guess I'm asking the clerk if you'll pass that application to the rest of the board so they can have an opportunity to look at it. But that is the name that I'm putting forward to fill the seat for the planning commission vacancy.
That's great.
Okay, more to come on that as we see the application, and Commissioner Mejia can bring that forward when she's ready. Commissioner Klaus?
I have a question, related to the first item on the Racial Equity Council. Where are we at on filling the vacancy for the staff person that would manage that council? Are we coming pretty close to the end of your recruitment process?
Sure, just want to make sure you
Yeah.
finish. Yeah, the recruitment process is undergoing. I know that they have, they had a list of candidates and they're working that way through. So I'll get you an update probably through email on where
Okay.
we're at, because I believe we're getting close to ready to the next step. I believe it closed on Friday.
Okay.
And so they're gonna be working with HR to process the applications and then create a slate and then move it forward.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, let's move on then. We've got both commissioner items next. Hold on. Okay, I'm just seeing what else is in the packet. It's about the public hearings, I guess. Okay, so commissioner items. Anyone have a commissioner item?
I do.
Commissioner Grant?
Yeah, I would like to talk through, and the implementation of the volunteer program. I created just a quick brief that I'll go through, with everyone really quick. I would like to just have an opportunity to kind of go through this whole thing with you guys. And then we can take questions after that.
Okay.
And anybody else wants anything? Oh, Maria, yeah, Maria, good, I'm glad you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then I got two left.
Oh.
Right for them. So, okay, so I just wanna kind of walk through, the process. Oh, I'm gonna get my glasses on. I put this together really to just document the steps that I've taken or that, have taken recently, to obtain 2 interns for my office, and to outline, the progress that I made for that, with that. And then I'm asking to request formal board action to recognize, this program that Maria had sent to me. And to there's a couple action items at the end. One would be formally getting confirmation that the current intern engagement that I did is in compliance with what we have as current HR policies and guidelines. And so I just want to talk through really quick the program timeline, and I'm going to literally go through this step by step. So back on March 5th, I had a meeting with Maria and Leonard. It was a meeting for us to go over a briefing, but at the end we had a discussion around any existing internship policies. I asked, are there policies? Has there been unpaid internships or a precedent that we've gone through in the past? And Maria confirmed that, yeah, there has been, and that she would look that information up and she would get it to me. And Leonard agreed that that would be a good idea. The next day, I had some informational, just so you guys know, I had some informational interviews with a class called the Changemaker class at Evergreen State College. A couple different students reached out to me, and the last one that I spoke to, I really was interested in his qualities of professionalism. And I said, have you ever, because I was a student at Evergreen State College, and I know that having an internship and what you call an independent study contract is a requirement for some of the programs. And so I mentioned, hey, if there was ever an opportunity, would you like to come intern for my office? I'd love to give that to you, because it was very hard for me as a student. I felt very nervous to ask and those kinds of things. And so I mentioned that to him, and he was like, yeah, but probably, it was the beginning of March when I had that informational interview, and we were like, yeah, maybe it would be too quick to get done for spring quarter, but maybe we could do something over summer quarter. So that was the original. I had to go back through all my emails to remember all this, but I put it together. So then, so with that, I drafted what I thought would be, I had to kind of come up with something that I was like, will there be enough work? What could they do? For me? So I drafted kind of a draft possibility for him to go and talk and just float the idea with a professor that he works with. And then while Maria was working on getting the other things together, I met with the intern to talk about if we did this, what are the internship terms and what are county policies? We discussed through, maybe a potential project that he could work on. And then on the 24th, I followed up with HR and the county manager. Leonard responded with support in an email, and Maria sent over outlined all the onboarding steps, the ID badge, the IT access, and time tracking in an email for me, and then sent over a couple days later the internship guidelines. On the 25th, I ended up meeting in person with Evan is his name, as an intern. And when he met with me, asked if he had been working all year. So at Evergreen State College, they work in year-long programs generally. You start out the year and the Changemaker Lab was the first 2 quarters. And then the final quarter, you generally either find an independent contract, which means that you say, here are the things I'm going to do with another outside entity, and here are the things I'll accomplish, and here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that for credit. And he had been working with this other person, Nicolette, all year in a team setting. And after we discussed the work that I would like them to do, he suggested that maybe he bring along this other partner who he's had a really good relationship with. So I said I'd be willing to meet with her. They came in and I met. I met with them both. We talked about academic requirements and the scope of work. We talked with the faculty about approving both contracts for 8 credits each. And then on the 27th, Maria sent over something called the volunteer internship guidelines, which were updated. It states in it that were updated in 2025. Also, there is a temporary intern orientation packet that we were able to get, that Maria sent over, and it has all of the policies that a temporary intern would need to follow. It has, including borrowing a car. I mean, I won't go through them all. You're welcome to, I sent those out at one point in time, so you're welcome to look at that. But it has all of the relevant policies in it that we need to make sure that we go through with a temporary intern in order for them to make sure that they're representing the county in a proper way. And so each of those are listed there. Thank you, Maria, for sending all of that over. And then on the 31st, the Evergreen, we signed over, when I say I signed a contract, the contract that I'm referring to is called an independent study contract. It's a contract between myself as a sponsor, the faculty, and the student. And for them, it's called an internship study contract. It says, here are the things that we agree that I, as a sponsor, will give them as work. I will track their hours, which are 20 hours a week. I will make sure that I do things on my end. The faculty will give support on the back end. Faculty meets with them once a week. I meet with them every 2 weeks. And so then we signed the contract so that they could get their financial aid, and that they, because it is official, their financial aid is dependent upon, whether they get 8 contracts or 8 credits or 16 credits. And then on the 3rd of April, Evan actually reached out to Maria just to make sure that onboarding, if there was a need for onboarding, should it be done through, there's quite a bit of emails back and forth, going back and forth to make sure we knew how to do the onboarding. And then Maria said, generally supervisors do the onboarding. And then we were able to finalize the second intern's contract with the faculty, different faculty sponsor, and then submitted that on to HR. All of this has been submitted to HR. And then on the 8th, Amy confirmed that what the steps would be at Maria's request for badge access, for workspace, and for IT setup. And then on the 10th, I had set an onboarding meeting with the interns, and I got a note at 1 p.m. before the 3 p.m. meeting that we needed to pause any forward movement, which was very confusing to me. And then, so I held the onboarding meeting with the interns because class has already started, the quarter's already started, research has already started, and on their end. And we went through all the guidelines, read through everything, made sure that everything that we were supposed to have followed was read out loud to make sure that if there was any sort of risk, that we had followed all those appropriate steps. And then I did put in here, just so you guys know what will happen going forward, but there are we have a timeline written out with specific steps and specific assignments from now until the end of the quarter, which is the 13th of June. Right now, they're working on, they're supposed to be working on just creating an outreach flyer. The end of the project will be a town hall that my office will be holding at Lacey City Hall on the 5th of June. It will be a community, what we're calling the community learning collaborative. It's just a chance for various providers and various human services organizations and the public to come together and have a chance to learn and collaborate together. This group will be working on mapping some of who we should invite, going out and talking to a few of them to make sure that, see if they want to come, so they understand that my office is really interested in engaging and listening and being partners with our human services providers and organizations across the town. And then and then they'll come back together. We'll finalize they'll help me put the learning collaborative together. We'll execute the learning collaborative. I'll write their evaluations on the last week, and that will be that. And they'll go back into their lives, and I'll have had some free or some really great collaborative work, and they'll have the opportunity as students to look at a model that they've been working on called around community resilience, and they'll be comparing and analyzing community resilience to the project that they're working on, and that's their goal for their class. And so with that, I just want to say, I wrote some more things down here, but, they'll be receiving academic under faculty supervision. They are assigned to public engagement, event prep, research, and communications. They will represent only my office, not the full BOCC. I use policies that are already in place, and they're listed here with the official titles. And there will be no county funds expended. They will be working in the office a couple days a week, like less than, I think they're doing 10 hours at home and 10 hours here was kind of we hope that they could work, and if they had access to me, be able to ask questions so that we could do some, when I say working here, it will be mostly us sitting in rooms trying to figure out what we need to do to plan for the learning collaborative. And I'm asking, based on all of this information, for formal acknowledgement from this board to confirm that the current intern process that I use is compliant with the current HR guidelines that are in place. I will also suggest that we, if this is what folks want, that we review the current internship and volunteering policies for clarity and potential modernization, and that I'm also requesting that we give direction to the county manager to develop a standard operating procedure for interns and volunteers engagement to ensure that we have consistent practice across all departments. Right now, there is something in place that just needs a little more updating. And that's it on my end.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I do have a couple of questions, and I guess I'll just give some context and history about the intern setup in the commissioner's office. So when I first started, I've been approached throughout my whole term. I'm still getting approached about internship opportunities, within not only my office, but within the commissioner's office. So when I started and I got approached, I was hoping to bring some internships under my office, and then conversations with the county manager at the time, based on the county infrastructure, the workspace, the needs, right, that maybe I hadn't thought about, as a program is set up, that does require staff time. It was during that time that an internship process was created for the commissioner's office, where one intern position was set up, not only for one commissioner, but for the full commissioner's office. And from that, we've had 2 interns, very successful, if I might add. And it was very exciting to actually have those students here in the commissioner's office. And so kind of based on this, right, I know the intern was paused just based on a lot of changes that happened within the commissioner's office and now with budgetary things. You know, I've been telling students, you know, as they've been reaching out, I've been telling professors as they've been reaching out and, you know, just, we haven't posted it yet, I'll let you know. So for me, you know, I contacted the county manager because I wanted to know, did the process change from that, that which was outlined before? And so I'm looking towards the county manager and HR.
If I may, I went back to do some research and I did not find any documents in HR that documented a specific process within the commissioner's office. Internships here at the county, like other recruitments, have been decentralized with the appointing authority having that discretion to approve them. I think what's you know, and reflecting back, I think what's different here is that there's a question about who is the appointing authority. And so without going back and maybe reaching out to the former county manager as to what he had put in place, I was unaware of that. So I approached it from, you're bringing on an unpaid internship. And I think that's one of the differences. I believe that your prior interns were paid. And with that comes some strings, like depending on the hours that they're working per week, that they may have eligibility for benefits, retirement. And that was what I also found was that payroll after the paid intern had been selected and actually made a, you know, I'll call it a job offer, then that's the first notice that we can find that where we were aware. And so then the commissioner's office received some guidance on how to set them up properly. So I apologize for any confusion that my role may have caused in this. That was not the intent. I do think now that there's a question about the contract, the interagency contract itself, and whether that should be approved by the board.
Yeah, and we ran that question through AO's office, and the interagency contract does need to come before the board for formal approval. As Jane Futterman provided perspective that the board is the only one that could enter us into an agreement with another entity. So.
Commissioner, are you, Commissioner McGinn, do you have more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So my next question, so there's this guideline and this volunteer internship guidelines, and I'm wondering when that was created.
So what, and we consider interns temporary, so certain policies apply to the internships, and so we, for many years, have had that listing. And so when this came up, I looked at it, it looked like some of the policies were updated. So I updated it. I also updated a fact sheet because with internships, we do have to follow the Fair Labor Standards Act. And I wanted that to be very clear. You know, it has to be a college program. There has to be that relationship. It has to be to the benefit of the intern, not the county, right? So that they can't come in and supplant normal work, in particular with a bargaining unit. So that's what that packet was that I shared in terms of be sure that, you know, these things are, that we're in compliance and that certain policies like harassment prevention, workplace violence, basically any policies that apply to volunteers / interns / temps, that those get reviewed and signed off by the volunteer.
So has that packet been reviewed by the board or approved by the board?
No, it may have been many years ago. Like I said, it's been in existence for quite a bit of time.
It sounds like that's just you compiled different policies that deal.
acknowledgement for the policies, we also have to ask a question about if it's a volunteer that maybe already is in the PERS system, because then we have to report that to the Department of Retirement System. So it's some checks and balances to make sure that if they're paid and they're eligible for retirement, that we're reporting that to the state.
And we do have unpaid interns throughout different departments. So I guess my next question is, in terms of no county resources expended, right? Every time we're granting badge access and workspace and IT setup, that is county funds being expended. So I guess I'm seeking for some clarification on that.
And each internship will be different. Someone may not need access to IT. So if we get somebody that's interning or volunteering for let's say the stream team, right? They're out in the field, so they may not need that, the IT access or a telephone access. So it really is an individualized assessment based on the department need. And then there's a checklist and it goes through, do they need an ID badge? So if they're reporting here to the office, then we would want, for instance, reception to know that it's an authorized person to come in. Their badges typically don't allow access to locked offices and things like that. It's really purely just identification.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Just like on the resource thing, so I mean, it sounded like there's some legal distinction if it's unpaid versus paid. And I guess going to Commissioner Mejia's question is the fact that, let's say the employee does need a computer and a workspace and these different things, that still counts as unpaid because they're not getting salary, or does that somehow,
Correct.
or can that cross over something?
It's really a resource that the department has to assess whether or not they have that. So if I wanted to bring in an HR intern, if I don't have an extra laptop or computer, then
Okay.
right,
But they
like
still
that
stay
expense.
they still stay in unpaid status, even though they may be getting some support.
Right, even though the county might be expending resources to set them up, because I think what I hear you saying, Commissioner Mejia, is that there's a cost to the time it takes to set somebody up with a badge or IT access or telephone access. But that's not considered a wage for purposes of a
Some of
pay.
the labor
But it is resources.
But it's county
it's a
resources.
Public
county resource.
resources being used.
And then, so I guess my next question is directed towards the county manager is, so if this is the new process that the board decides to follow, then, do we have space and capacity for each commissioner to have interns?
Yeah, currently we do not have space capacity for, if all of you wanted to activate interns, no, we don't. What I will say is I do appreciate Commissioner Grant's reaching out to Human Resources and trying to work through the process. I think my assessment of the situation is we as staff, and I take full responsibility for it, should have slowed down and really understood what the intent was so that we could have helped guided a new commissioner to implementing a good idea in a successful way. And Marie and I have had conversations about that because I think even the compiling of policies here and there into one document is a good idea. But I think the unintended consequence, because I don't think Maria intended this, was to give a new commissioner the framework of, oh, this is the box I need to work in. And Commissioner Grant was very open that she wanted to do what was right and appropriate. But I think that we have not really talked through all the implications of all of you wanted to activate interns all at the same time and what that would mean. I'm not saying that it's the direction that we could not go, but there's some analysis and review that would have to take into consideration, and obviously learning from the PAO's office, which again is all for not bringing them in early to talk about that, so we could have given direction to a new commissioner that site agreements with universities have to be approved by the full board, which is something that we understand. So I think I want to make sure I'm answering your question, but just provide a little bit of context to how this kind of played out.
Commissioner Grant, if you had a response to that.
Yeah,
and
I just do,
Commissioner Fournier as well.
of course. And, yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, and, we went through a similar process like this at DSHS at one point in time and like trying to determine what's the difference between, a paid versus like a position number, paid intern versus what are we gonna define as this new program that's a 4-credit intern? You know, and so that was what I was trying to do, right? Was to take this to, you know, how do we establish an opportunity for a 4-credit intern? I agree. I would just say that, I just reviewed what we had done, you know, and that looking at the internship site agreement, I am fully, would be absolutely fine. I mean, yes, you're probably right. This is an agreement between our site and their site, and it should be reviewed by PAO. And I'm fully okay with doing that. I mean, absolutely. No problem. I have no problem doing any of those things. And I just wanna, I think the other thing I will say is that I just followed the steps that were given in front of me. I have no problem. I don't think that my staff needs, or that these interns even need a computer. They have their own computers. I don't think that they necessarily need VPN access. You know, I think that that was just what we laid out to them in an email previously. So for us to look professional and like we knew what we were doing, I kind of wanted us to follow, you know, instead of backtracking, you know, and I think that that's really important if we do want to take on additional, you know, once we have a site agreement placed with Evergreen, that would make it available for you all to have your, you know, to potentially have someone for summer quarter, or, you know, and I think that as long as we move forward, you know, one thing, I'll just say the last two things would be that, number one, the folks that I've already brought on board, I would hate to stop their work because their quarter started and their financial aid is dependent upon it, them completing the quarter. And I'm working towards a project that I need to get this work done. And then, but on the other end of it, I definitely would love to see us as a board look at how to set up a standard operating procedure that would say the group needs to talk about it as a group before somebody moves forward, and to be on rotation so that each of us could have an opportunity to have one so we aren't using up resources. And I don't necessarily think my interns need space either. They can come work in my space and they can come work in, you know, so I mean, if I wouldn't, you know, I just went with what was told to me, so I did that, you know, so I'm happy to collaborate however we need to just get, you know, these two things in place.
Thank you, Commissioner Fournier.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Grant's initiative, and I think she's got great intentions. I have several questions that I don't, you know, maybe we'll figure out as we go on, but it's very important that we ensure that it's understood and enforced that no individual commissioners can sign contracts binding the county without explicit delegated authority. So that is something that we will get hammered by the auditor's office if we're not hardcore on. So none of us have authority to bind the county outside of some official action saying, yes, we approve, you can do that. But typically, we would all do that through the administration. So anything that has been signed, it's not legal. So any site agreements that have been signed on behalf of the county, saying that we're a site for an internship with Evergreen State College, if that's been done outside of board authority, it's not a legally binding agreement. That's problematic. That can be problematic for the person that signed it. That can be problematic for the students that were brought into a relationship with the county. If we're not careful, sometimes that can result in civil penalties. It can result in audit findings. there's reasons that we have HR professionals and county managers. They exist to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. There are laws on the books that say that we, as municipal officers and county commissioners, cannot extend special privileges to any individuals or outside entities. If there wasn't a process that shows how these interns are brought in, what school we developed a relationship with, it could be seen as being done arbitrarily and giving special privileges to, folks. A lot of times internships result in jobs. So it's something that's pretty regulated to make sure that a process is followed. I don't know. It doesn't sound to me like I can be confident that the right process was followed, because we're not even sure what the process is. And I read in the actions taken, drafted internship contract. And I read finalized second intern's contract. If those were not run through the board and board approved, then those contracts aren't real contracts. So I think it would be important that we pause and evaluate and make sure that this is done right going forward. Otherwise, we're already in a weird situation, and I want to be sensitive to everybody involved, but we also have to make sure that, unpaid versus paid, volunteer versus intern, those are all different things, and you can very easily unintentionally create employment relationships, even if somebody's not paid. If an intern's brought on and it's to the, like Maria was mentioning, if it's to the benefit of the county versus to the benefit of the intern, that creates different, legal quagmires that we have to use our processes to make sure that we don't get ourselves in. I would want to just pause, ensure that we've gone through proper HR processes, and then have a legal review of any contracts that have been signed, so we can understand what was signed, and then we can have a conversation about if we want to recognize those after the fact, or if we want to pause further and have a greater discussion about, opening Pandora's box on internship programs within the commissioner's office.
Commissioner Hugh?
Thank you. So I guess kind of where I'm at, since this was brought forward today and I'm kind of dissecting this, Maria, I guess I'm asking for the information that was sent over to Commissioner Grant, the volunteer internship guidelines. I would like to take a look at those. And then because I'm not sure kind of what was sent over, and so if that's
I'll just say that for me, having seen this history, I feel like, kind of like Commissioner Fournier started out saying, I think everyone was trying to do the right thing, but I feel like, as the county manager, I think highlighted, there was just sort of a gap in terms of how this should have kind of unfolded. If looking at this process, I would say if it looked like, oh, this couldn't and shouldn't have happened, then I would be more inclined to agree with Commissioner Fournier. But I think if things had been done in the best way, it would have happened. And so I guess my concern, it's not about the work Commissioner Grant needs done, but it's about two students that are like on the hook for their education and their financial aid. And I do not want to see our like imperfect process create that kind of detriment to them if it was something that would have happened anyway, probably, if it had gone through the proper steps. So I guess I'd like to just, I agree that there needs to be legal I's dotted and T's crossed, so, you know, I'm supportive of bringing the site agreement forward if, after PAO says it's okay. Definitely want to follow that kind of process. I had concerns when I heard about this, about unpaid and paid and what legal avenues might be transgressed. But if PAO can sign off on what we're doing, then I would like to see it move forward, again, more for the students than for anything else. And Commissioner Grant, you know, I don't think it was her intention to put us in a situation where that got out of line, but it did happen. We should make sure that we talk about how it doesn't happen again like that. But in this case, I want to see us kind of find some way to make it work so that we don't leave constituents hanging like that because of our own sort of lack of process. Yeah, Commissioner Mejia.
So can I provide like an alternate, not just, I agree with you that Commissioner Grant was following the process taken to her, right? But I've had UW reach out, I've had St. Martin's reach out, and I've been turning people away. And so, like, if this is the process that we're gonna allow, right, then for me, like, I would like to bring on interns because I've been reached out by several students, by several professors, and so I just want to set up a process where it's equitable for all of us, right, to have something set up. Because understanding that while we might have an agreement with Evergreen, right, there are other universities and colleges here locally that would like.
But we don't have an agreement with Evergreen. That is not, we don't have something ratified that is a legitimate I think that's important.
Yeah.
Like there is something that was signed outside of board authority with Evergreen. That doesn't mean that the county has an agreement with Evergreen.
If somebody, well, yeah, legally speaking, if somebody is an agent that has a parent authority, we can be bound by that. That's what you're,
if they have
that's
it,
what you're concerned about.
but they don't have it.
They don't need to have it. If they have a parent authority to the other side, we can be on the hook for that, which is why we need processes and you don't have commissioners signing agreements. Because we actually can be bound by a contract that wasn't authorized because she has a parent authority as a commissioner. The other side would reasonably believe she had the authority that she purported to have, which puts us then on the hook for it.
If you read, I mean, if you read on, you know, municipal officers' authority, it says that it is like an ultra vires, that we specifically do not have authority to bind our organization to anything.
We don't, but if the other side was damaged in some way
Then
and wanted to
yes, and then
hold us accountable.
And the
because-
issue, and it specifically says that here, that's the issue. It specifically says that the commissioner that signed would be personally liable. So if Evergreen is harmed, the county's not on the hook, but Commissioner Grant is on the hook. And she will have to pay out damages, not the county. And I mean, we don't want you in that situation.
Right. Commissioner Klaus.
I have a couple thoughts on this. First, I'll just come right out and say, I think that whatever we can do as the Board of County Commissioners to ensure that these students, you know, their education is not compromised, their financial aid is not compromised, I think that's important for us to do, like to make sure that, you know, whatever is paused right now is unpaused as soon as we can make that happen so that these students, because it's already been 5 days, and if they're doing almost 20 hours a week on these projects, that's almost 20 hours that they've already lost. So I would like to see us unpause that as soon as we can. I also, let's see, there was something said about like, Commissioner Fournier was bringing up, you know, there's laws on the books that tell us what we can and can't do, what we can bind the agency to and what we can't. And there's, for me, a little bit of gray area. So if we're getting legal review, I'd like to understand, like, has Commissioner Grant, from a legal perspective, bound the agency to anything, or is her office as an elected official, like, does she have the authority to, I mean, like, if this contract was just between her office as an elected official and the college, is that the same thing as binding the county if the contract was coming from the administration?
Yeah, we I'll try to answer that question because we had a conversation with Jane yesterday. And I'll allow Amy to kind of speak to it a little bit because she was on the phone longer. There's the individual student agreements, which they believe that Commissioner Grant, if there was an overall site approval from the board, could sign. There was some question about, does the board feel comfortable in that? That was a board prerogative, but she could see a place where an individual commissioner could sign that. But the agreement between Evergreen and the county would need to be signed by the board because the board is the only authorizing agent to enter into an interagency agreement, which that site agreement is effectively, that's what Jane described it as, with Evergreens, and then any other college per se. So that was her legal review. And Amy, is there anything you'd like to add?
Maybe just like to sort of paraphrase, but so the site agreement with Evergreen is really an intergovernmental agreement because Evergreen is, though a public college, it is a state agency. And the Board of County Commissioners has the contractual authority for the county. So even though the agreement as it is right now, I believe it does state that it's just the Office of Commissioner Grant, it still is on behalf of Thurston County. And the Board of County Commissioners is the contractual authority.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that answers my question. So what do we need to do to ensure that these students aren't getting the short end of the stick? As far as like, do we need to take formal action? Is it okay to take action in a work session? I know it's not on the agenda for today, but like, do we need to take formal action at a business meeting, or like what level of formality is required here?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I guess like I have two suggestions. I would say I'm glad that you guys clarified around the internship. So I have the internship site agreement right here. It's very minimal, and I actually just read the top and realized that we might even need to have this in place because it says this agreement is not required for internships sponsored by any official government agency of the state of Washington, and I think we would officially probably fall under that, but it doesn't matter. I have no problem. This is basic language. It does say field supervisors usually sign it, but I have no problem getting this reviewed by PAO today and having them decide, and then we can have, I don't know what if the chair of the board needs to sign it or whoever would need to sign it, and I don't think that's not gonna be able to really stop anything. It should be just fine. I would also agree that the individual study contracts, which are right here, and this is a comment on the future process, that the individual study contract is not a contract between an entity, and it is not a legal binding document. It is a document of agreement between three people: the faculty supervisor, the field supervisor, and the student. It is a contract that the student is required to fulfill, and it holds the student accountable to their faculty in order for them to receive credit for their classes. I would think that, agreeing with PAO, who said the internship site agreement is saying, that we're taking responsibility, so yes, let's get that reviewed. Going forward though, when you're creating, and I've done this I've worked in the past with South Puget Sound, with UW, and St. Martin's, all have very similar processes just like this, where you have an internship site agreement. Generally in the past, it's something you send to HR and HR signs. That's my past experience. But these individual contracts, how you so Carolina gets somebody from UW, which I think is a great idea, comes down, then Carolina would write up, here are the things that you and I are gonna work on together over the period of time, and are we both cool with that? And then they sign like a little contract, and then that gets submitted to the faculty. It's different at every school, but I do not think that those need to be approved by the board, and I don't think all of us need to know exactly. That's why we are our own supervisors. That's why, if that's what you all want, I'll do it, no problem. But I just think,
assuming there's no financial component to what.
none at all. And I'm happy to route these around, because they're actually really good examples of how you could build something for yourselves in the next, it's actually just a form that they have the individual study contract is a form that was created 25 years ago or more at Evergreen. And I go in and fill out what are the objectives, what are the learning objectives, what is the timeline, and then the student fills out what they want to learn. And then I have to hold up to my requirement, and so we adjust those back and forth. The last thing I'll say is I would like to move this to a formal, the actions that I listed on this brief, which is a formal acknowledgement, a policy review invitation, and SOP. So the formal acknowledgement or formal motion, I would like to create a formal motion to move forward with the interns. I would like to have a formal motion to move forward with the internship program currently as it is, after having the PAO review the individual study contract and have it signed. And so that would be what I'm asking is for formal approval for things to continue. And then direction to the county manager to develop a program that we can all get behind. Yep.
Commissioner Mejia.
Thank you. So I have 2 points, I guess. So I guess clarification is, if we follow this motion or this action that Commissioner Grant is requesting, then at that time, is it opening up the door for all of us to do that, to follow kind of this new process? And then 2, so being that these students are brought on, kind of where I'm at on this, because there is not technically a formal process. Basically, that's a different process outside of the commissioner's office process is being followed. Then for me is that, if we're going to be continuing down this path is, we shouldn't be expending any kind of county resource onto this. Like, once we start doing the IT setup, once we start doing the badge access, once we start doing all these things, like, all these are little financial ticks that start adding up. And so if Commissioner Grant is going to have her 2 interns here, I would just, for me, like, any kind of county resource that we're adding on to that, like, it just leads down a slippery slope. So for me, like, I would like to, if they have access to their laptops and they're going to use her space, then that's one thing, right? But again, when I asked the county manager, do you have space for all of us to bring in interns or the capabilities, he was just like, well, I need to check on that, right? And so
So if yours is a motion, yours might be an amendment to that motion
Wait a second.
But,
I'm
well,
I'm not even sure what the motion was a little.
I'm just saying, for process purposes, if it was a motion, then Commissioner Mejia's suggestion might be an amendment to the motion. Was yours a motion, Commissioner Grant?
Yes, it's a motion.
Was there a second to the motion?
Could we?
I'll restate it.
Yeah, she stated it, but.
Sorry, I didn't have my glasses on and I was trying to read it.
Chair,
And,
so
yeah, I
The
will.
motion, okay, I'd like to let you.
I'm trying to think of what.
That's your things, may I?
And before,
I don't want to get too far out in front of, like, what I think would be the first step in the conversation is, as a board, because, somebody got out, we got a little ahead of ourselves. I think there should be a discussion about, do we all want interns in the office? And what does that look like? And how many, and then, well, how many does each person get? And, what's the fair way to come up with this? What's the supervisory structure? Or, was it Ashley is their supervisor, or is Commissioner Grant their supervisor? What would that look like for all of us? So in my mind, there's a first discussion to have. And then I also want to reiterate that these documents that were signed are not legal. So there currently are no interns.
Point of order, Chair. We have a motion on the floor with an amendment, and the motion is being clarified, and I'd like to.
there's no motion.
You don't have a motion
Okay.
on the floor.
No motion yet.
Okay.
Commissioner Grant's gonna restate and make the motion.
So what I'm saying is, I there's preliminary discussions, I think, that would be valuable to have before rushing through something that was done out of order. You know, I don't know if, you know, asking for forgiveness is not better than asking for permission. You know, like, we have to follow process. And while I know we tried to, I don't think that exactly happened.
Commissioner Grant, are you ready to make a motion?
Okay, yes. I move to approve 2 interns for Commissioner Grant's office following the current internship guidelines. I'm gonna read those. The 2025 volunteer internship guidelines and temporary employee/intern policy packet and orientation. After, I'm gonna wait here. Okay, after the prosecuting attorney's office has a chance to review the internship site agreement for signature.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. So a motion and second, discussion on that motion.
So I just want to say, there are no approved intern guidelines. You know, so the guidelines that were collated have not been vetted and not approved by the board. So to say that they follow the guideline, there are no guidelines. To say that the site agreement should be reviewed by the PAO for signature is being presumptive. And so the motion is invalid in my mind, because you're removing the authority of the board to then review that site guide. So the site assessment or site document would be approved for legal reasons, and then it needs to come before the board for the board to discuss and authorize. So you cannot just pass a motion to go to legal review, prepare for signature, because that signature has to be authorized by the board. So there's steps.
Commissioner Klaus?
I think that some of those steps are outlined in the motion itself. And the motion gives the board the opportunity to provide that authority that Commissioner Fournier is seeking. And then as far as the comment that Commissioner Fournier made about what was the guidelines? What is that document called? It's outlined in this.
Right here, 2025 volunteer internship guidelines.
Yeah, those were furnished by either HR or the county manager. Something exists, so.
Right, somebody made this somewhere along the way.
Yeah, so just because.
That's a packet of, that's the policy.
That's what you sent me to follow.
The motion is
That's
that
the policy.
It's a
they
checklist.
exist, the motion is to follow them, even though they're not officially board approved by
Yeah.
this board. But in this, for the context of this motion, they would be
How
followed.
do we know that those weren't approved by a previous board? Like, that's policy as it exists now. It's current, it's what our HR person is
I'm
using.
saying what I know about it. What I know about it is
We don't
we
get to,
haven't.
we don't have to approve, if I have a policy in place, I will follow the policy that's in place until it's amended by the board.
I'm trying to say, Commissioner Grant,
Right.
I'm on your side in the
Yeah,
sense
I
that I'm
know,
trying to
but-
say that if I scribbled something on a piece of paper, right now, I could make a motion to say, I want this to happen following the guidelines that I just scribbled on a piece of paper.
Right.
And if the board approves that, then.
Right.
Then that thing will happen pursuant to this piece of paper I scribbled.
Right.
So whatever the status of these guidelines are, your motion is to have them followed in
Yes.
this context
Yes.
for this purpose. We can pass something different or bless them or put the Pope's oil on them later, but that's what your motion is, just to clarify.
Yes,
Commissioner Klaus?
Thank you. So the last thing I'll say is, I'm in support of this motion. Primarily because I don't wanna, mess with the students' financial aid in their education. As far as weaponizing this language around, we have to follow this process, and a lot of that kind of stuff is used to cherry pick what board members are okay with and what they're not okay with, even if a process doesn't exist. And I think that some of those conversations could be alleviated by implementing some sort of bylaws for the county, for the Board of County Commissioners. I think that that would help a lot with some of this process-related conversation. And then, lastly, I have just a question for Commissioner Fournier. I do think that we're stronger as a board when we're united on things. That doesn't mean we always have to agree, but because of that, I'm wondering what it would take for you to feel comfortable with a motion like this. If it's, hey, I want to see, these documents, can we approve something like later on, maybe this afternoon or tomorrow, if Commissioner Fournier feels comfortable. I just want to make sure that even though I'm ready to support the motion now, I want to make sure that all commissioners have the opportunity to feel comfortable with whatever we decide.
Even though you asked Commissioner Fournier that question, I'll give him a chance, but Commissioner Mejia, your hand was up first.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, being that I have not seen this document that was sent out, being that, right, if we do follow this, then I will be making a request for my office to add the interns of the people that I have been turning away. And so I'm gonna be asking for the same rights that have been given to Commissioner Grant, because I do have several students, and since there is no number of students that is being outlined, then, I will be adding some, possibly in the coming weeks.
Okay, Commissioner Fournier.
So thank you for the question. Some of the language I think was a little inflammatory. I don't like somebody saying weaponizing process. I don't think that's fair. But you have to have process. And we cannot have a county commission where individual commissioners are going out and signing things unilaterally on the county's behalf and then coming in here after the fact and asking for it to be ratified. We can't do that. That's bad practice. Because, who's to say, Commissioner Menser's not gonna go out on, something that he's really passionate and interested in and signing on the county's behalf and then saying, oops, and then coming in and saying, I want it on the agenda tonight because there's 3 people that are gonna be harmed if we don't ratify this. That's bad practice. We cannot do that. So while I'm not against interns, and I do believe that Commissioner Grant has great intentions, and the things that she outlined are wonderful. And I want to be at a place where I can be supportive of them. That's not my issue. My issue is we can't have individual commissioners signing things unilaterally on the county's behalf. And maybe there was process that was laid out. Maybe there was process that was not fully understood or whatever somewhere. I don't care. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but that did happen, right? That should not have been signed. It is not a legally binding document at this point. If somebody was harmed, and there's potential issues. We don't need another lawsuit. So if you ask, if you're honestly asking what would it take to make me more comfortable with it, it is, slow down, stop. First, we have a conversation about if we want to have interns, because now do I want Commissioner Mejia to have 4 more interns in there next? I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but we haven't talked about that. So we can't talk about that now. We set a point in time later where we all have a conversation about the intern concept. Once we've talked about that, then we talk about a process where we sign up for relationships where we bind the county to a relationship with specific schools and universities and programs and why we would do that. And then you have a process where there's equitable opportunity for interns from the various programs that we've identified to come in and ask for an opportunity to be here and ask for the opportunity to have access to the privileges that you get and the opportunities that you get once you're a part of this organization. Because we can't do that outside of some kind of process. Otherwise, you're potentially giving favors and opportunities to people that haven't gone through a process. And there might be other people out there that are left in the cold and in the dark. So without those things being done, you know, it's hard for me to be comfortable with it. And yes, I'm sensitive to the fact that many people have been put in a difficult situation, but that, you know, and that could have and should have been avoided, and let's build a better process so we don't get here again. But where we're at right now is in a place we can't be. You can ratify things after the fact, after somebody's gone out ahead of us and signed something, but I don't think that's a good practice, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually agree with everything you said.
You don't have to say actually. You can just agree with me.
Well,
I actually agree with Wayne.
No, I could, no, never mind. I do agree with you. The only thing that is unfortunate in this situation is we did have a commissioner who genuinely and honestly thought they were following a process based on the recommendation of
The
staff.
road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Right? I understand good intentions.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
No,
I get that.
What Commissioner Mensah said earlier about I can't remember the wording you used, but like, that the students could reasonably believe that Commissioner Grant had the authority to engage in these conversations. And I think, you know, as we do want to follow processes, we do want to document those. I completely and wholeheartedly agree with that. I love the concept of interns. Commissioner Mejia, if she wants interns, I think that'd be great. I mean, whatever assistance we can get here in our office to move forward on the projects we want to move forward on, while also providing an educational opportunity for students, I think is great. And I'd be happy to approve a process that Commissioner Mejia brings forward if that happens soon as well. But I think, you know, in terms of weighing the pros and cons of, do we want to have a formal process in place before we approve something based on these values or these, points like what Commissioner Forney was bringing up? I think that the potential consequences of not upholding the agreement that the students believe is, you know, a legally binding agreement, I think like the consequences of that outweigh the consequences of following a process that might not have been memorialized yet, but that we can agree as a board, we're gonna work on those.
But it's not want to have a process, it's you have to have a process to ensure that there was equitable
And the
access.
Commissioner's Office does have an intern process.
And that's what was provided to Commissioner Grant when, right?
Right.
Was the, okay.
Commissioner Grant.
So, just to reiterate, and I will say, I have to step out in a minute or two for a very brief phone call about my son. They're supposed to be calling.
Maybe
me, right?
close to ready to call
Yeah.
for the question.
Yeah, and so, I was just gonna say that I do wanna publicly state that I really feel that it concerns me when we discuss, using county resources, excuse me, I'm just gonna say this. I would like us to be able to create a policy going forward that encourages as many interns as possible, because utilizing programs like this, which is a very good use of county resources, because it's a retention, it's a recruitment, it's about giving folks an opportunity to engage in political process and to be able to bring people along through the democratic process. And I think that when we don't have to pay someone, it is good for us to be able to, be able to say publicly that we, Thurston County, are encouraging as many folks to get involved as possible. So I want to say that. The last thing I'll say is that I definitely, you all know that I believe in policy and process. If a policy or a handbook or something is currently in place, that is what we are supposed to be following. And if we want to change it, then we will. But we have to, really want to encourage this group to start drafting, start looking at bylaws on how we have process in this group, or we're going to continue to have these issues. Right now, we're bringing the county manager in the middle of it, the HR person in the middle of it, our county clerk into the middle of it, and wasting, in my opinion, hours and hours and hours of people's time because we don't have a process in place. And so please, I would like us to be thinking about standard operating procedures for everything we do, so that next time I'll just go to the standard operating procedure and be like, what can I do and what can I do? Oh, easy, can't do that.
But it is a standard that no commissioner can go out and sign contracts. That's something that that you're taught from day
The HR
one.
director didn't know that, and neither did Leonard, and
You
neither
can't
did Amy.
speak for Maria. I'm sure that
So-
she knows that no commissioner can sign a contract.
So I just had a clarifying.
Go ahead, Maria.
The guidebook, the handbook, it speaks to county policy and, you know, a checkbox for onboarding. It does not speak to the issue of who can sign the contract. So I just wanted to make very clear. And I think that that's the question today is, was there authority by a single commissioner to sign that? And if not, to bring it to the board for review and approval. And I think that the handbook piece of it is a separate conversation about, does it cover everything that you need it to cover? And you as an office, what do you want your internship program to look like? Who should it be vetted by? I kind of see three paths.
Maria, that thing that you put together was something you created.
It's something that, has been in place for a long time in terms of temps and volunteers and realizing that now we're moving more towards internships to put them in that category. It's a volunteer or
It's titled intern.
So, and that was me clarifying, like, here's these policies that apply to these category of, I'm just gonna use the loose term of volunteers. And here's a checklist for when you bring them on, what resources do they need, if any, reviewing of policies, like where's the break room, right? I mean, some of it is just very simple, welcome.
Sorry.
I'm gonna get in there, I'm sorry, because I've been waiting.
About that.
The Commissioner Grant, I will say that even if let's say you don't need the side agreement because we're a government agency and you have every right to go out and, I do think it's a little weird that you wouldn't let us know that that's happening. Like, even if we all have a right to bring it, I didn't hear about it till Thursday when you said, hey, my two interns are showing up today to get their computers. That's the first I heard of it. So just the fact that I didn't know that it was happening, I don't mean me as a chair, I just mean me as another board member. That would be, even if we all have this right to do it, I'm gonna approve all of your intern requirements, to the extent they're unpaid and they're not supported by, and they're not creating employment relationships and all that, if legal says that's true. But I mean, just to know that, I would think that we would all give ourselves a heads up that it's happening, so we know what's going on. So that's a little bit of a weird thing in this series. And then they go to Commissioner Mejia and then Commissioner Fournier.
Thank you. I would like to bring just a couple points. So you said that you named the guidelines, right, are for volunteers and temp employees. They're not for interns, that you added that language onto there because that's where you thought they would fit in.
There was a gap, right? I realized that there's this gap, so that information has been used for internships. It wasn't part of the titling, I guess.
Okay. So technically, the volunteer internship guideline, and that's just a document created by you.
By HR.
But putting all those policies together, it doesn't technically exist.
So it's like a guidebook.
Okay.
So it's a guidebook.
And then I want to bring up the issue again on the historical context on why we went with a paid internship versus unpaid internship at that time. And in these discussions with the county manager, right, the reason why it was decided for us to go with a paid internship, to have one for the full office, was equity. And BIPOC students from marginalized communities are less likely, very less likely, to take on an unpaid internship based on the burdens that they face. And we saw that in the range of applications that we received when we offered the paid internship out. And so it's great, right, bringing students in and having those unpaid interns, but they're unpaid, and that's the big piece of it. And we're talking about equity and trying to offer, right? Like that's the reason why I was supportive of not having it under me or under my office and having it as something that would serve the full board was to be able to really give that access to a student that otherwise really would not have that opportunity. And we saw that in both of our interns that came through that were absolutely wonderful. Our first one was breaking so many barriers and was social work. And then after coming to the county and seeing everything we did, decided to go to public health instead, right? And now is getting her master's at Georgetown in public health. And always circles back and checks in. And so I just kind of wanted to add that note on why after long discussions with the county manager at the time, we decided to go that discussion, and the board was supportive of that process and approved that process when it was brought forward in front of them.
Commissioner Fournier. Yeah, again, great intentions. But, you know, two words that raise additional red flags that I've just heard say, you know, like there's no such thing as free help. So, right, even when we onboard somebody, you know, there's volunteers are gonna come in and empty the trash bins and, you know, do things like that. And then there's interns that are very much embedded in the office work. You cannot call them free help and just say, well, it doesn't cost anything, because there's public resources that are being allocated to these people, these individuals. There is supervision, there is oversight, there is office space that won't be able to be used by other people and in other ways. So it is obligating a certain amount of public resources, and then it is giving access to public information, opportunities that need to be afforded to everybody, just like Commissioner Mejia just said. So to just say it's free help, that doesn't work. And then, you know, Commissioner Grant said, hey, these are great. You said recruitment. These are great recruitment opportunities. Yes, they are. Oftentimes interns end up working in a public agency where they've been given the opportunity to intern. That's, again, why it is important, not just important, it is required that equal opportunity be given and there be a vetted, followed through HR, public process that ensures that people aren't being cherry-picked, hand-picked, given special privileges that weren't afforded to other people. These rules exist and have existed for a very long time. That it prevents it prevents elected officials from coming into office and then creating, unilaterally, arbitrarily creating positions and putting their political appointees in the office all over the place. These safeguards have to exist. You cannot have, one commissioner be able to just, without any oversight or checks and balances, be able to just load up the office with people that they've picked and then give them special access and special privileges.
I moved the previous question.
Okay,
I've got to go to this.
Okay,
call.
then,
Chair, before any further action is taken on the motion, just a technical point. So the motion currently states, after PAO has a chance to review the site agreement for signature, however, it is technically it's like an ILA or an intergovernmental agreement. It would go to the PAO for their review and then come back to the board after PAO's review for the board's, with the proposed motion for the board's formal action
if the
on it.
PAO determines it needs board approval, then it needs board approval, or else it's not.
Which was my point in saying the motion was, as it was stated, was out of order.
Well, it's a little bit, it's conditional, and we've done that before on multiple occasions.
As long as that's clear, because
Yeah.
that wasn't made clear in the motion.
Okay, well, that's clear, yeah, okay, that's good.
PAO's already weighed in preliminarily that site agreement does need board approval.
Okay. If it's needed at all, though, Commissioner Grant brought up a point about that it may not be actually required. If it's required, it requires board approval, it may not be required.
It is required.
Well, it might not be required
Yeah,
by Evergreen State College, is what they're saying. What I'm saying is that I can clarify that.
If the question is whether we are agency of Washington, was that your question? Because it
We
said-
are an agent of Washington.
That's what I was going to say. We are an agency of Washington.
So it's not required, right? So according to the top of this, it's not even something we have to sign because we're already operating. Evergreen State College is also an agent of the state of Washington.
I would like to see, I mean, I think it's embedded in the motion that legal would,
Yeah, we'll check.
Yeah,
if they can say, you don't need this agreement, then
Then everything
it moves
moves on.
forward. If
Yep.
if you need the agreement, then it has to come before the board through the, process.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the motion. I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. And Commissioner Grant, you have to leave. Are
As
there
soon
other
as the phone
commissioner
rings
items
again.
to be addressed this morning?
Keep going. As soon as the phone rings again, I ask them to
Okay,
call back.
any other commissioner items? Okay, we're at the end of the agenda. We're adjourned.